I was in the 3rd grade, and I was about 8 years old. That time when you start discovering new emotions like embarrassment, which goes along with soon becoming self-conscious of absolutely everything, which inconveniently lines up with when you might have your first crush. And 8 years old for me also meant experimenting with things like the capacity of my bladder. And in 3rd grade, I went to a one-room schoolhouse. And it's exactly what you're picturing in your mind if you watched Little House on the Prairie, except it wasn't 1882. I'm not that old, geez. It was 1982. And I just happened to live out in the middle of nowhere, and this little schoolhouse was the only option. And it was proper and prim and strict, and I had to wear these little dresses and all of that, which was a nice nightmare. And we had this formidable teacher, Mrs. Becker, and she had these jowls that independently moved, not with her face, anytime she was angry, which was like 99% of the time. But who could blame her, because she had grades K through 8 in one room. The little kids were in the front, making your way all the way back to the older kids, the 7th and 8th graders, who even in this small school reigned supreme. So just take a moment. Think of something embarrassing you've done in the 3rd grade, and now feel a hell of a lot better, because when you did your embarrassing thing, it was in front of your peers, which were probably fellow 3rd graders who had the attention span of 2 seconds. When I did something embarrassing, it was in front of the whole school, including the cool older kids, and including my crush, Eddie Parks, who was a 6th grader. And he was, the first one with the cool jean jacket and the rock band pins. And he had this naturally curly hair. And honestly, he was probably everybody's crush. He was definitely Heather's crush also. Heather was that annoying girl in school. And, the one who just tried to one-up everyone for her entertainment. And she was perfect and got perfect grades and had all the Hello Kitty stuff that I would never have. And this wasn't just me being jealous or envious. She was a true mean girl. So you might know those girls, you might have had them in school. I hope none of you were them. I know you weren't, actually, because this is a comedy event, and we all know that those girls grow up to be full-grown women who have no sense of humor. So, we had a very strict end-of-the-day formal routine, and this consisted of having to do classroom chores, which my favorite was clapping the erasers together to get all the chalk dust out of them. And this was my favorite because you got to go outside. And at 8 years old, my ADHD brain was also rearing its super fun head. And you also had to do some cleaning at your desk, meticulous cleaning inside and out, because Mrs. Becker would come and inspect your cleaning. And you would signal that you were ready for her inspection by standing beside your desk, wooden chair flipped up over, and you would stand at attention ready to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and a Bible verse, a weekly Bible verse for good measure, because we've always done separation of church and state in this country so well. And on this particular day, I knew I had to pee. Soon-ish. And so I got all my stuff done pretty quickly. And there I was, silently willing the stragglers to hurry along. And then I realized I couldn't wait one more second. I had discovered the limits of my bladder, my 8-year-old bladder, and I knew that if I didn't do something that I was going to pee my pants. And so I did something really, really scary, which was asking Mrs. Becker if I could go to the restroom. And this was scary during the regular portion of the day, because God forbid you couldn't force your empty bladder to work during recess time. And I must have looked really sincere, and I must have looked desperate, and I am sure that I was doing, like, you know, the 8-year-old pee dance. And so she answered my question with 2 words. Hurry up. So I ran down the hall and into the bathroom and into the stall, and I sat down and I let the floodgates out, and it was such sweet relief for about 1 second. And I realized my mistake. I had sat down on a closed toilet lid. Yeah. And I couldn't stop that flow. I mean, it was a force to be reckoned with. And as I watched the pee cascade over the toilet, bouncing off the porcelain onto my socks and shoes, I watched in horror as the puddle on the floor grew into a sea that expanded way beyond my stall out into the bathroom itself. Finally, I finished. And like a good little Christian, I walked across the sea like Jesus. And I stood back to assess the damage, and I knew I had to clean this up. No one could find out about this because I hadn't peed myself like a normal 8-year-old. Wasn't down the slide, wasn't even in my own bed. I had peed myself in a bathroom on a toilet. So I couldn't use paper towels. We had, some of you might remember, we had this metal contraption that had this very long loop of sewn together cotton fabric. You would kind of rotate after you washed your hands to try and find like a clean spot. Every young person in here, it is worth a Google search. All I had was toilet paper, and this was not normal toilet paper. This was the old school, cheap as fuck, little sheets of toilet paper. And it had the consistency of those papers you use at the grocery store bakery to get your donut out. But my effort was valiant. Soon, I had this land mass in the middle of the sea that was just a paper pulp mush. And I was about to really panic. And just then, who should burst into the bathroom? Heather. She had been sent to fetch me, and I watched her face go from bossy to confused to shocked to a devious, gleeful smile. And she turned on a dime and ran out of the bathroom, and I knew exactly what she was going to do. And I also knew that I needed to go back into that classroom because Mrs. Becker was not going to dismiss anyone unless I was there, and it was just going to get worse. And so I squished back to the classroom. I don't remember making eye contact with anyone, but I do remember the giggles that turned into chuckles, that turned into laughter as I went and dutifully stood by my desk. And I was never so grateful for Mrs. Becker than in that moment, because even though it felt like hours, she quickly had hushed everyone's laughter to get on with this formal pledge of loyalty. I pledge of allegiance to my platter. I'm so sorry, I will never do that to you again. That was a lie. To the United States of Eddie Parks, please don't think I'm a loser forever. He lent me that jean jacket the following year. And yada yada, to which it stands, one nation under God, who certainly doesn't exist if this was happening to an 8-year-old, with liberty and justice for that little bitch Heather.